Hi everybody, this is Brandon Finnigan, Director of Elections here at Decision Desk HQ. Well, here we are, the 8th out of 9 weeks with primary after primary after primary, fully constituting pretty much a majority of all the states that are going to be holding primaries this year. We kind of started this crazy swing of races all the way back in the first week of May, and, well, here we are. We finish on a big note, actually, before we take a bit of a pause for most of the month of July. This week we have primaries in Illinois, which feature 2 member-on-member primaries, one for each political party. Races in New York, sort of. We'll get into that a little bit later. Colorado, Oklahoma, including a U.S. Senate special election primary, Utah, and runoffs in South Carolina and Mississippi. It's 2 states that just literally had their first rounds of elections earlier this month. So yeah, it's kind of a big night. And before we dive in, please remember to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. If you enjoy these videos, be sure to click the bells to get notified as soon as they're released and give them a like. And just to give you a little bit of a note, some people have asked me and even DM'd me a little bit on Twitter, hey, it seems like you're always distracted or looking off when you're on the camera. Well, to be really honest, those brief moments of time where you see me kind of looking aside or looking, there's no really script here. We're just talking about these elections as they kind of come in and give you a sense of things. Now, as the Director of Elections here at the desk, I have a responsibility of monitoring my team that's in charge of, well, collecting those unofficial results. And every single week that there's an election, there's plenty of action to happen. There's plenty of notes that pop up. There's county clerks reaching out to me, city clerks reaching out to me, messages I have to fire off to them. It never ends. As you can imagine, this country, there are hundreds of individual county and municipal contacts we have just for this election week coming right up, and hundreds of individual contests that we at the desk happen to cover on any given week. Just because we focus on a couple here in our videos does not mean that's where our coverage ends. Please make sure you check on our results.decisiondeskhq.com website to follow all the other races we don't discuss here during the primary season and, of course, in the general election. Now, that little aside away, let's go ahead and get right into the elections this week, all right? So first off, let's start in the land of Lincoln. We're going to go a little bit out of order here. Yeah, we know South Carolina starts around 7 p.m., but let's jump into the arguably biggest state of the night in terms of just volume of contests, right? The land of Lincoln, Illinois. So first up, there are 2 major congressional primaries y'all are going to want to watch on election night. Both of them in Illinois. These are the ones that I think are the pivotal ones for this night. And the first one is going to be in the 6th Congressional District. It's going to be the Democratic primary. It's between 2 current members of Congress thrown together into the same district after redistricting. Not only did Illinois lose a seat in reapportionment, but the state legislatures have created a second majority Hispanic district in the state. And as a result of that, that's forced Sean Casten and Mary Newman together into the same district. Now, Casten was first elected back in 2018. Newman won her seat in 2020 after unseating the then-incumbent Dan Lipinski in the party primary. The district is, you could say, Democratic. It voted for Clinton by about 8 points, voted for Biden by about 11. It's a generally white, reasonably wealthy, suburban, exurban, southwestern, and west suburban district. A district that not too long ago would have favored Republicans. Now, Casten has been endorsed by 16 House reps. You know, you got Maxine Waters, you got Katie Porter, a good number of people that have thrown their endorsement behind him. Newman has a few endorsements of her own. 8 House reps, including Peter DeFazio, Ro Khanna, and Pramila Jayapal. Newman is a little bit embroiled right now in an ethics scandal, kind of alleging that she had bribed a competitor to not run a race, promising a staff position for it, having him sign a contract, allegedly, and then reneging on the contract, again allegedly. The Office of Congressional Ethics found reason to believe that she may have violated some ethics laws. Republicans are hoping that she wins the primary, thinking that she may have some of this baggage going with her, and they're hoping that the district, while again voted for Biden by 11, voted for Clinton by 8, maybe it can come more in their favor if they get a candidate they think is weaker going into the November election, but that remains to be seen. Casten is favored right now as the late-breaking scandal has kind of eaten into Newman's support. The reality is, though, whenever you have these kind of districts where 2 candidates all of a sudden have to get slammed together, they're incumbents, they've represented other sections of the state, and while they might have some overlap with their current district, they're both sort of familiar and sort of strangers there. There really is no one particular area to watch in terms of a county. What instead you should be watching is the initial votes that kind of come in, typically those votes that get cast and are reported first in Illinois, or some of your early voting and your early mail-in ballots that have been reported. Then you'll see the election day vote come in. If you see a shift towards either candidate as you move from the early vote to the election day vote, that's important to watch, because Illinois, like many other states, still has additional mail-in ballots that have arrived on time but have to be counted and have to be processed, and oftentimes those are not done so till after the evening of the election. We saw that back in 2020, we've seen it in 2018, and early voting and other non-in-person election day voting options are still popular in Illinois. So as a result, if you do see a discrepancy between, the voter preferences of those ballots that have been cast and counted from early and the voter preferences of those who cast in-person election day, well, stands to believe that as the post-election night count of the mail-in ballots that have been received on time but just haven't been processed yet may go back in favor of that first candidate. So that's what I would be watching in that contest. It kind of applies as well for the next race we're going to cover. The second member-on-member primary, this time on the Republican side, Illinois' 15th district further south, features a race between incumbent Congressfolk Rodney Davis and Mary Miller. Now, Davis previously represented a much more conservative version of the 13th district, but was redistricted into the 15th to try to stay in office. District is effectively all rural. There's a few small towns like Jacksonville, Mattoon, Quincy, and of course Taylorville, which is Davis's hometown. Now, Davis has the endorsement of just about every Republican figure except former President Donald Trump and current U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. Miller has the endorsement of former President Donald Trump and the Freedom Caucus. Why? Well, Davis voted for the January 6th Commission, also voted for the recent infrastructure bill, and declined to endorse Donald Trump back in 2016. Now, Davis is trying still to run to the right of Miller, trying to argue in all of his ads that her foreign policy votes, whenever she does vote, she kind of votes with the progressive Democrats on many occasions. But Miller's ads, all about her, tend to be about Trump's endorsement, and she hasn't really given in to bashing Rodney yet in many of her ads. And pretty much since Election Day is right here, we shouldn't expect to see much of a surprise there. So we'll have to see how that shapes out. Again, the same situation we had kind of up north. When you have the map get shaken up this much, like you've seen in redistricting with the state of Illinois, it's really hard to say who has a favorite area, whose geography is going to slam them. Your hometowns are pretty much it, and that gets kind of lost in the sauce of the county reporting. So the best thing to do is simply sit, wait, and watch these numbers, especially since they're rural. They're going to take some time. Watch these numbers come in to get an idea of really what's going to be happening in the 15th district. All right? So let's take a turn away, south and west. In fact, riding down Route 66, let's go ahead and go all the way down through to Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma's, the focus for the night is going to be on two GOP Senate races. Incumbent Republican James Lankford is facing a well-funded challenge from Jackson Laymeyer. Lankford was planning to vote against certification before January 6th, flipped after the Capitol was breached, and they voted later. Laymeyer is running as the Pure America First MAGA candidate, if you will. He's endorsed by Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, Mike Lindell, Wendy Rogers, Rudy Giuliani. Lankford is heavily favored here, but it's still worth keeping an eye on, considering the endorsements that his opponents received and the funding that his opponents has raised. The second Senate race here is to replace 87-year-old Jim Inhofe, who is retiring 2 years into his fifth term. There are tons of candidates running in this race, but the main competition is between two major ones. Current Congressman Rep. Mark Wayne Mullen and T.W. Shannon. Mullen is favored but could easily be pulled into a runoff. People are still kind of seeing if he maybe gets a last-minute endorsement from the former president. He did vote against Electoral College certification back in 2021. Shannon lost to Lankford in the last Oklahoma Senate primary for his seat, and it was about a 57-34 rout in favor of Lankford over Shannon. The counties you're going to watch in any statewide Republican race in Oklahoma are going to be where the voters are. Wagoneer County, Oklahoma County, and Tulsa County. Oklahoma County is home to, you guessed it, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa County is home to, you guessed it, the city of Tulsa. These areas still pump out a lot of Republican votes, and while there'll be a lot of rural counties voting as well, these are going to be really big critical areas to see. Mark Wayne Mullen, running in this Senate special election, his 2nd district is open. All right, now that's a deeply, deeply red rural and small town area in eastern Oklahoma. It's wide open, but fundraising is being led by Chris Schiller, Johnny Tahee, and Avery Carl Fricks. Given that it's Oklahoma, expect pretty much the winners of all of these primaries to carry their seats easily come November. We're going to move on over to Colorado. Now we're going to start with the GOP Senate race between Ron Hanks and Joe O'Dea. The winner faces incumbent Democratic U.S. Senator Michael Bennet. Of all the seats Republicans are looking to realistically pick up this year, Colorado is probably the stretch. A win here would probably mean that the Republicans have already won Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, New Hampshire, and held on to Pennsylvania in that kind of an environment. It means a potentially larger majority next year and could set them up for a shot at 60 seats in 2024 if the environment remains favorable for them in 2 straight cycles. The Democrats, of course, are quite keenly aware of this. They've been spending heavily to boost Hanks' profile as they feel he's the more beatable candidate come November. Now, incumbent U.S. Senator Bennet, he is the favorite going into November against any of these candidates, but there is an idea that if they can get somebody who they think is weaker through the primary, it'll be an easier time for him. The key counties for a statewide GOP primary include all your suburban counties around Denver. So you've got Jefferson County, Arapahoe County, Adams County. But also you're going to want to look at places like Weld County, Pueblo County, which has seen Republicans gain more favor in the voters down there. And I would say the biggest county of all for Republicans is going to be El Paso County in Colorado. Right, that's home to Colorado Springs. It is a extremely critical county for Republicans. It's been Republican dominated for a long time, and whoever wins that in a statewide race is probably going to win, the actual statewide race. There's a couple of interesting House races we should watch as well. Colorado Springs-based District 5, Colorado 5. Incumbent Doug Lamborn is opposed by State Rep Dave Williams. Both are from Colorado Springs. The district is only a single county. To say that it's been a nasty all-out fight is a bit of an understatement. Lamborn read an ad saying that Williams was fired by Trump's campaign. Williams filed a criminal complaint with the DA's office against Lamborn. Colorado has a law that says you can't disperse information to affect an election, which is what Williams has alleged that Lamborn was doing. It's currently under review. Lamborn is being challenged in the first place because he allegedly misused his office's resources for personal gain. The Congressional Ethics Committee says there is a substantial reason to believe these allegations may have some weight. Colorado is one of 5 states to gain a seat in reapportionment. Texas was the 6th, but gained 2. The new Colorado 8th District is north of Denver. It's a Hispanic working-class suburb of Thornton and the town of Greenlee, combined with big red rurals and wealthy suburbs in Brighton and Todd Creek. It voted in 2016 for Donald Trump by 2 and voted for Joe Biden by 5 in 2020. More Hispanic than the 7th district, so less of a leftward shift than we've seen in other neighboring areas. It's a 4-way primary there. Jay Coleman, who's the Thornton mayor. Thornton is the biggest Democratic vote base in this whole district. Tyler Acorn is U.S. Army veteran. Barbara Kirkmeyer is a state senator. Lori Sain is a member of the State House Representatives for the last 8 years. These 4 are going to face off against Yadira Carevo, who is unopposed for the Democratic nomination in the general election. So that kind of wraps things up in Colorado. We're going to move ahead on into Utah. Now, there's an interesting dynamic where 3 Republican House members are being primaried to some degree over their support or over their lack of support for Donald Trump. In the 1st district, Blake Moore, and in the 3rd district, John Curtis, both voted for certification of the 2020 presidential election results and the January 6th committee. So they're both being challenged by pro-Trump supporters. Both are still favored to win. In Moore's case, there are 2 challengers who are likely to split the vote up against him, while Curtis beat challenger Chris Herrod in a 2018 primary by a 3-1 margin. In the 4th district, a little bit of a different dynamic. Incumbent Congressman Burgess Owens is being primaried by Jake Hunsaker, who is endorsed by Trump critic, current Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger. The odds are, though, all 3 incumbents will prevail, but the various margins may be interesting barometer of the feelings of the GOP in the state. New York is the other state holding primary elections on Tuesday, but it's limited, all right? Only some of them. Because of the House map being thrown out by the state's highest court as being too favorable to Democrats, those races for the U.S. House won't be held until August, so you're going to be waiting a little bit for those primaries. So on Tuesday, the nominees for U.S. Senate and statewide offices will be held. Now, there's no real upsets seem to be kind of here in the radar, and given that New York's partisan lean, the Democrats are expected to sweep all of those seats. Okay, there's a little bit of an interesting Republican primary for governor. Lee Zeldin is expected to prevail, but he's going to face a challenge from two interesting candidates, Andrew Giuliani, son of former mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani, and of course, former Westchester County executive Rob Astriano. In terms of runoffs, South Carolina and Mississippi, they're holding theirs. They had their first round just a couple of weeks ago. In South Carolina's case, just 2 weeks ago. The biggest race to watch is probably in Mississippi's 3rd congressional district, okay? Republican Congressman Michael Guest faces off against Michael Cassidy. Cassidy received about 200 more votes than Guest in the first round, and it was barely forced into a runoff, so it should be a pretty interesting race. The final race of the night that I would say is worth really, really watching closely is going to be the 1st Congressional District special election in Nebraska. Republican Mike Flood faces off against Patty Pansing Brooks. Both are state senators, and the contest is to replace former Congressman Jeff Fortenberry, who had resigned earlier this year after his conviction on federal corruption charges. Now that's going to wrap things up for us here for this week. It's a big one. I hope you're all ready for it, staying up late to watch everything. There's going to be a substantial break in election coverage for us until Maryland's delayed primary takes place on July 19th. That's going to do it for our preview of the June 28th primaries and runoffs. If you enjoy these previews, as always, please be sure to like and subscribe and sign up for new video notifications. I'm Brandon Finnigan, Director of Elections here. Thank you all for watching.